Right, so how many of us have wanted to see the day that Jeremy Corbyn finally took it to Keir Starmer, gave him a proper dressing down, ripped him a new one, a rinsing as Jez does it best, all politeness, naturally, of course, never a raised voice, but no less brutal in the takedown by what he says. Well, like most of us with an ounce of empathy in our bones, Corbyn is not happy about the situation with the Bibby Stockholm, with asylum seekers being put aboard this prison barge, but the direction of his ire being aimed at Starmer centres around Labour's reaction to putting people aboard the boat themselves. This is where the coward accusation comes in, where Stephen Kinnock, the Welsh Windbag 2.0, having bleated on the media rounds on Sunday that Labour will have no choice but to use them owing to the mess the Tories have made of the asylum system, merely pledging to move such people out of hotels, barges and military bases as quickly as possible with as much hand-wringing as they could muster, with another red Tory, Nick Thomas-Symonds, the shadow international trade secretary, adding to Kinnock's comments that they'll have to address the situation they inherit, all very reminiscent of the excuses the Tories made upon coming into power in 2010 about why they couldn't do anything, blaming a global financial crisis and the fallout from it on the UK Labour Party as they did, and claiming they bankrupted the country when that is literally impossible to do. The fact that a great many Tory ministers in the intervening years had been bankers party to a lot of what led to the global financial crisis, notwithstanding, of course. But it gave them the excuse to enact all manner of Tory cruelty, of course. That Labour won't offer alternatives ahead of going into power themselves, or hoping to, and just moan and are making the same excuses that the Tories did then in relation to this, though. Well, it's little wonder the left is unhappy with them, and it's little wonder a politician of Corbyn's calibre won't have a bar of it either. Corbyn has said, forcing human beings who have escaped war and persecution to live on unsafe and overcrowded prison ships is morally indefensible. So too is the failure to offer a more humane alternative. These are human beings who are legally and legitimately exercising their right to asylum. We should be defending, not denigrating that right. Political cowardice has consequences, and vulnerable people will pay the highest price. That's why I'm proud to stand alongside people in my constituency campaigning for an immigration system based on dignity and care. And I think he summed it up rather nicely. It's not that Labour will have no choice but to keep people on barges or in hotels or on military bases. It's more the fact that Starmer is too spineless to come up with an alternative in case the Tory voters he's always chasing and the Tory donors whose money he is desperate for don't move to him ahead of the next general election. It requires policy to be put together to fix this. It requires a position, a concrete position to be taken on it. It requires financial commitment as well, which Rachel Reeves's fiscal rules are the excuse behind blocking, because so far no new policy will be tabled on the basis nothing is affordable, and she's hell-bent on spending absolute zero. Why bother with policies when you're going to get into power anyway, it seems to be the thinking. They're basically stood there looking at this situation, tutting at the state of the country, like there's some kind of, like Starmer, for example, like he's some kind of proprietor of a back alley chop shop, examining the state of some old banger in front of him, with the owner of said vehicle wondering how much the damage is going to be. Starmer doing the one tutting, stood there looking at it, and it probably makes Rachel Reeves the one stood behind him, blowing her cheeks out and scratching her head in agreement. It isn't an impossible situation that they are going to have to inherit, that there's nothing they can do, that they're basically telling the entire country nothing's going to change under us in effect. They're just too cowardly to do so, and Corbyn is bang on in calling them out. Think about it. We're probably 9 to 18 months out from an election right now. What could Labour be doing right now? They could be drawing up an alternative, drawing up legislation even to put forward and enact within days of being elected, should there be so. There's a backlog of cases to be dealt with. Why not ask for help from the EU to help process them more quickly? The small boats are coming from the EU, after all. We might not be part of the bloc anymore, but we still deal with them, especially on this issue. We still have political relationships with them. Starmer might not be interested in rejoining, despite campaigning to bring Corbyn down, saying he very much did, but then he's a liar, and that's largely why a lot of what I'm going to suggest here is probably a moot point, because who would trust Starmer even if he did come out and say this? But anyway, here's what I think he could do. Bring in outside help, like I said, more people to process asylum claims more quickly, get the backlog dealt with. It is one of his 5 promises on such things, however weight and how much value you place in that. Where he wants to prioritise certain countries, which seems arbitrary and racist to me, though, it should be done case by case, triage them based on their stories, their cases, their circumstances, not where they're from. And you can pay for all of this by binning off the Rwanda scheme. Now, this is something he says he's going to do anyway. But Starmer's allocated that cash as it stands for more border patrols to stop the boat smugglers. Just deal with that situation properly once and for all and put them out of business. And you do that with a legitimate legal asylum route, an asylum centre in Calais, for example, to process them, as France has already suggested themselves. Why not? No need for more patrols then if there's a better option for asylum seekers than the boat smugglers. And you stop people dying in small boats trying to get here at the same time, putting life first, frankly. Labour is already committing itself to a new returns policy with the EU, so with that in place, we no longer need to be responsible for housing all successful asylum applicants here, as we still currently are, thanks to Johnson's Brexit deal not including that, and the Tories defying logic by not doing this themselves. Lastly, let's deal with this accommodation issue, though. Hotels might not be ideal, with detention centres overflowing due to the backlog of applications, an entirely Tory-made mess. But while you get that backlog down, they're the most humane option and cost-effective one. Just because right-wing hate rags paint this as a luxury they don't deserve for some reason, doesn't mean you have to listen to their ravings. Bringing military bases online for a temporary fix is a bit of a waste of money. Converting them into detention centres permanently might be considered more of an investment, but it shouldn't really be necessary. But then we come to the boats. The Bibby Stockholm is only cost-effective over hotels to the tune of £5,000 a day on a £6 million daily price tag, and it only works out cheaper if you double the capacity that the ship was meant for, rendering the entire thing unsafe and unfit for purpose. Another interesting story has popped up today, though, something which hadn't crossed my mind, and I'm a bit annoyed it hadn't occurred to me. But of course, the people being put on this floating Grenfell, as it's being referred to, came here via small boat. Not everyone coming that way makes it. Many drown. Preventable deaths for want of that legal asylum route I already mentioned. But many who do get here are still traumatised by the experience. It's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, not a place for a small boat to cross at all. And some asylum seekers set to move to the Bibby have successfully blocked their being moved there on the basis that it will traumatise them being on water again, that they're afraid of water, given their experiences of crossing the channel, or beyond that. The first 50 asylum seekers were supposed to be put onto the Bibby Stockholm yesterday. Only 15 were, with at least 20 apparently citing fear of water as a reason not to be sent there. Now, at a cost of £6 million per day, those 15 people cost us £400,000 each last night. When was the last time Travago charged you that for a one-night stay in a hotel somewhere? They'll cost us that again today, short of more people being herded on there. That barge is utterly inhumane, is a prison ship, and getting notice to be sent there is causing others great anxiety. People fear being sent there, and when it is actually working out to be more expensive than keeping them in hotels, as it surely must be with such a small saving over such a large daily outlay, and so many hold-ups along the way as well, it is being used purely for political capital to appeal to the froth-mouthed racist segments of society that read those same right-wing hack rags and whose votes right-wing politicians are chasing, including Starmer. Tying yourself to keeping this as Starmer is shows he's no different from the Tories implementing the damn thing, when he could close the thing on day one and put the people back in hotels. It would be cheaper, but it would lose him those right-wing votes. It would be doing the right thing, but he would lose those right-wing votes. It invites attacks from the right-wing press as well. It might drive away right-wing donors, though frankly a lot of Tory donors I think are appalled at this policy. Starmer wants those votes, and he's practically humping Rupert Murdoch's leg these days for a good word from him. So for all the solutions, Starmer won't do any of this, and he says he has no choice whilst doing so. This might not be the driver for where your vote goes, maybe, but much of his other policy positions are just copying the Tories as well. But does it not make you feel a little bit sick to be thinking about voting Labour when they're clearly running away from doing what is right? Corbyn is absolutely right too. What's new? Corbyn's usually right. But this is political cowardice. We need strong leaders, not weak ones. And in both Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, we have two prime ministerial options come the next election for whom the whims of the establishment and the direction of the right-wing press are leading both by the nose. Weaklings, as they both are. The country is screwed whichever one of them gets in again, so I'll be taking my vote elsewhere. I'll vote for change. I'll sure as hell not be voting for any party insisting this vote and the inhumane choice to treat other human beings the way they're being treated right now is something they have no choice over. They do, and if Corbyn still led Labour, you can bet this wouldn't be Labour policy right now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation for you where lefty lawyers now face jail, according to the Home Secretary, for being pesky and daring to block more government cruelty against migrants and asylum seekers. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.